What is up, everybody, and welcome to this very special evening chatting with the guest of honor for Right Hive Conference 2025. I'm very, very excited to be chatting with Tatiana Obey, who's an amazing author who I've admired for a long time and who has also been a guest on my podcast. And we've had the pleasure of getting to know each other virtually and chatting here and there. I'll just give a quick introduction to myself. I'm Adrian M. Gibson, the author of Mushroom Blues, my debut novel, and I'm also the co-host creator of SFF Addicts podcast. But without further ado, the guest of honor for this year's Right Hive Conference. I'm very, very happy to have Tatiana here with me. Welcome, Tatiana.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with you.
Me too, me too. And just for anyone out there who doesn't know Tatiana, she's the author of Sistah Samurai and the newly released Return of the Sistah Samurai, which I'm very, very excited to read. I have read Sistah Samurai, but I haven't read your newest book because it just came out, I believe.
It's
I
not
mean,
out
when we're
yet.
recording, yeah, when we're recording, it's not even out yet. So this is very, very fresh, very, very fresh indeed. But Tatiana is an amazing indie author, someone who's well known in the scene, has won multiple awards, finalist for multiple awards as well. But there are also the Forging of Age series, which is the first series that you released actually before Sistah
Yeah.
Samurai, and also short story. We're going to get to it later on, but one of your short stories that has gone way farther than I think you probably imagined it would have gone. But we'll get to that later on. Just to get started, though, I wanted to dig into your writing journey a little bit in terms of how you landed on writing as this creative outlet and what your inspirations have been growing up until now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm definitely one of those authors who have been writing ever since I was little. I don't think I'd be Tatiana if I wasn't writing something. So I definitely at this point think I was born a storyteller, and this is kind of what I was meant to do. I'm really grateful to those elementary school teachers that I had who like let me
Yes.
draw and write after I finished all my work early in class, and like I would bother all of my friends like, "Hey, what do you want to happen in this story?" This little girl like in elementary school like writing these tomes. And in regards to influences, I distinctly remember one time, like the moment in elementary school, in school fairs. So school fairs are important. Like when I saw the cover of A Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Tracy Hickman and Margaret Wise, that cover, and that was the moment that like really began my love affair with the genre of fantasy. Um, but even before that, like all my stories were kind of like based off of like the Dragon Quest Game Boy games, like
Nice.
a party of adventurers going like on an adventure. So writing in fantasy has always really been a part of me. Like even further inspirations, like I loved like Alana the series by Tamora Pierce. Um, it wasn't until later in high school where I started picking up like Glenn Cook and Joe Abercrombie, and that was kind of another aha moment for me
Mm-hmm.
because up until then, like mainstream fantasy was very high fantasy, like the Lord of the Rings clones. So it's very like good versus evil, et cetera, et cetera. But when I read about like Croker and I read about Glotka, and I was like, oh wait, like this is the type of stories that I'm writing, which were more character driven, which was more morally gray protagonist, and also
Mm-hmm.
fantasy from like a very really realistic and grounded point of view. So that was the fantasy I was already writing, and it really made my stories feel very validated. And then, Game of Thrones got big, and that genre exploded, and here we are today. But further, like at the end of college, N.K. Jemisin debuted. And
Mm-hmm.
then you started getting more and more diverse fantasy. And now I'm really big fans of like Peter Jelly Clark and Fonda Lee. And I think just kind of like all of these influences really reflect the type of stories that I write, which is diverse, character driven, fantastical stories with flawed people at the center of them, kind of just often doing their best in a fucked up
Mm-hmm.
world.
Yeah. And honestly, like in terms of your writing, one of the things that comes to mind is like intimate. There's just like an intimacy to your characters and kind of like the close up focus that
Yeah.
you have, and that's definitely something that I can see. It's like if you're reading Joe Abercrombie, if you're reading Glenn Cook, it's like these are very questionable characters doing questionable things,
Yeah.
but also it's like you have that interiority that I think is really um, essential for readers to kind of click with that character or have something to latch on to. It would be really difficult to have, like a grimdark, morally gray, omniscient third person or something like that. 'Cause it's like so detached,
That's
right?
true. That's true. And I think, and I've tried writing omniscient, and I'm not very good at it. I'm usually like third person limited or first person. Like it,
Mhm.
I do struggle with omniscient
I
point of view.
honestly don't know a lot of authors these days who write omniscient.
That's true. Yeah.
Although we did a master class with Kat Rambo on our podcast about writing omniscient POV, um, which blew my mind because I'm just like, it isn't really the thing that speaks to me necessarily as a storyteller, but it is also really cool when I am able to read stories. Like Dune is one of my all-time favorite
Yes.
books, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and Dune is a very good example of omniscient third person, but it also has a lot of intimacy,
Yeah.
a
And
lot of
does it
interiority, which is
well
well, yep.
because even the omniscient, like third person in Dune, like feeds into the themes of
Hmm.
the book. Like it's brilliant.
It's an
Yeah.
amazing book. Yeah. So from the days when you were cheekily writing your stories while all your friends were still doing their homework and whatever, and also I imagine your teacher was probably just like, Tatiana, don't interrupt anybody else, don't you dare.
Yeah. They just put me in a corner and let me just do what
Yeah,
I
yeah, just like
wanted to
shove you off into the corner and be like, don't bother anybody else until they're all finished too. Um, I know you like expressing yourself through various creative mediums, but why is writing in particular a medium that appeals to you and your ability to express your creativity through words?
do. Yeah. I think that's just like I was born with it. Like I honestly don't have like an explanation to it. Um like I've also am starting to develop more like artistically, and that I can put into words.
Hmm.
Especially when drawing, sometimes it was hard to pay attention to the teacher. So like drawing actually helped me focus, like doing two things at the same time helped me focus on what was going on in class. So like and now like I'm trying to do it more and develop it more, and that's like a skill that I'm learning and practicing. But writing was never really something that I had to intentionally do. Like I go around every day with stories running in my head. Like I just it's what I do.
It's like a natural extension of your. I guess it's like almost like a thought process thing. Like your brain just thinks in that particular way, in
Right.
like a storytelling way.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like I don't think I go to sleep without like going through like plot points and things like that. Like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what go to sleep.
And it's so inconvenient too. It's like always at those times where you're like, well, I don't have anything to write with. I don't have like, it's like pitch black in my bedroom, in my bed, and then these ideas pop into my head, or I'm in the shower or somewhere else, or I'm driving, and it's like, oh crap, this is
Yeah,
not a
very
good
inconvenient.
time. Thank you, brain. But we've talked in the past about this, but just for anyone who isn't aware of like how the pandemic was actually a big catalyst for you and your writing, as it was for so many authors. I think like for me, the COVID pandemic was kind of what triggered my decisions to start a podcast, but also to start writing. And many of my friends are in a similar boat. What happened with you, and why was the pandemic kind of a moment where maybe you started thinking about writing more from a professional perspective, or thinking about it in that way?
Yeah. So, I don't think that the pandemic pushed me to start writing more seriously. But the pandemic definitely pushed me to start thinking about publishing more seriously.
Hmm.
Um, to finally say, okay, I'm gonna do this. So like that's where I really started like my research into the indie publishing industry, like putting together a publishing plan, like starting a business, and really deciding to get it done. So it was really like the implementation of okay, I'm going to be a published author. Because I was at that point. The pandemic, I was like, I'm determined not to die without achieving my goal of becoming a published author. I'm at least get that off the chest.
I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it happen. Um, so yeah, like that's where I really started taking publishing seriously. Like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and I mean it's I think a lot of people had maybe in the back of their heads kind of like a bucket list type concept, type idea of like these are the things I want to do before I die. But then yeah, leave it to a pandemic to tell you like, hey, you don't have much time, so get that shit done now,
Yeah.
or you might not ever get that chance again, right?
Yeah, and
But
I'm very grateful for that kick in the butt too,
yeah,
because like now I have published my stories, and a lot of readers are like, "Where have you been? Like, where have you been?" And I'm just like, "Oh, just a writing." So, I'm very glad for that push to finally get my ducks in a row and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this."
yeah. And was that also kind of part of what fed into your decision to go into self-publishing? Like, I know we've both experienced this where you have that kind of bifurcation in your life where you're like, I can go down this path and I can seek potentially traditional publishing, but if I want to do this before I die, then maybe that's not the best way to go. Because you have to go through so many processes. It's querying you have to go through, and many people go through querying agents for months and months and months, if not years and years. And then on top of that, once you have an agent, doesn't mean your book is going to get published. You still have
Yeah.
to submit your book to editors and whatnot. So, what were some of the biggest reasons for you to go down the self-publishing path? And on top of that, not just being a writer, but also being an author, being an entrepreneur. And props to you for putting together a publishing plan because I know so many people who just wing it, and I'm like, yo,
I'm
that's
just
not
not
the
that
best
type of
idea.
person.
Right? Yeah, it's a personality thing for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I need a budget. I need a timeline.
Oh
Um,
man.
but generally, I think kind of in my head, I always knew I wanted to be a published author, and so I had been following TradPub kind of a little bit throughout my life. Like, I think my senior thesis in high school was about the traditional publishing industry, and like a part of that process, I queried my first agent and got my first rejection, so that was fun. Got to present it to my entire.
Got it done early.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got it done early. Um, and so, like I definitely was looking at that pathway, and I did write a completely separate book. Um, and it just didn't fit. I did query agents, and I did go through the whole thing, and kind of the responses that I was receiving, it didn't fit. um, and at that time during the pandemic, I'm like, okay, well, let's really look at indie publishing, because indie publishing had become a much more viable pathway.
Hmm.
There were a lot more authors making a living off of it, and I was like, okay, this is like this is possible. What do I need to do? Um, so I did the research. I read all the articles. I watched all the YouTubers, like all the things, just to get my plan in place, because this is definitely something that I wanted to do, and I also wanted to do hopefully long term. like I didn't want to just publish a book, and because I'm very well aware that I'm a writer, I'm always be writing stories, so I'll always have something to publish, hopefully.
Hmm. And it like the less gatekeepers, the better, right?
Yes, exactly. So doing more research in the chat, doing more research in indie, kind of understanding the pros and cons of both options, I decided that indie publishing would be my pathway.
Yeah, and I think it is a really individual thing, like yes, everybody has their personality like on a human, emotional and psychological level, but everybody also has a personality when it comes to business and when it comes to more professional circumstances. And it's like
Yes. Yeah.
indie self-publishing, it takes, I think it can very easily eat you up if you're not prepared for everything that is required of you and your personality to be able to um, push forward in this industry, like specifically in like the self-publishing part of this industry.
Yeah.
And that's why, yeah, like you see a lot of people in traditional publishing drop off. Yes. But a lot of the times that comes down to forces beyond the control of the individual author. Whereas in self-publishing, yes, a lot of people do drop off, but that is more down to individual decisions and yeah, of course, like market forces and readership and
Yeah.
all this different kind of stuff plays into it to a degree. But the individual creator has more control over how they present their book, how they put their book out there, how they market, how they do all these different kinds of things on top of just the act of storytelling and writing a story and finishing it, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
that control was very attractive to me.
yeah.
Like, because I don't know like how many I definitely do see like stories in a very sometimes visual and holistic terms, in regards to like how the layout and how the cover, how all these things like add to the story and are part of the story.
Mhm.
And so my little perfectionist heart just was unable to give up that type of control.
You and I are in such a similar boat, honestly. Like, you can please like grab Sistah Samurai or Return of the Sistah Samurai and just like show off some of the interior design, or just some of like your design choices, because I
Yeah,
really, that's
let's
something
look.
about self-publishing that I think you and I particularly, I know some other people who really nerd out about it as well. Where that control aspect does allow you to do certain things that it's like a trad a traditionally published book, the publisher will be much more particular about page count and all these different
Yeah,
kinds of things that factor into their cost analysis, basically. But as an
yeah,
indie author, you're kind of like, well, like I can, like, I'm just like, this is going to be my first page of just like mushroom art,
mushroom.
and like I know you, like in Sister Samurai, you included like some really cool visual elements as well.
Yeah, like
um
one of my favorite things for like this newest book that I did is I did like because there's four POVs. So I did like
mhm.
character cards
Yes.
in front of each POV. So kind of like, like an anime and the commercial starts and you have like a character card of each of the characters
Or it's like
telling them their
it's like a
stats.
freeze frame, or
Yes, a
kind of
freeze
thing.
frame.
And I also saw that
Exactly.
you also designed, it looked like Pokemon cards. It was or like, just trading cards. It was so cool.
Yeah, yeah. I now that was something I always wanted to do. I'm very
Right.
glad that other people were excited about it with me, but I'm like, I want cards.
I'm going to do it regardless of whether or not anyone wants this. But how cool is it for you to be able to implement those into your book, just on top of, because this is something that self-published authors do have the unique ability to do, which is give their book more immersion, more like a visual element, or just like ways in which people can interact with the book beyond just the words on the page.
Yeah, and to me it's all a part of storytelling, because we have such other visual medias like TV and movies, and a part of the story.
Hmm.
and and just being able as an indie author to think of it in those terms and to give the readers like a more like a holistic visual of the story that you're trying to tell, um, it's just a very great opportunity, and I definitely recommend for indie authors to think about like visually how you can, portray the story. And sometimes it's very expensive to do all the little character art and to do all the small little details. And like I've had to brush off my art skills again
Right.
to try and get it done. um but it really brings something special to it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, not every author has the ability to do all these things themselves. So, I mean, like you and I are in unique positions as well, where we have art backgrounds. I used to work as a graphic designer, so I've been able to like I did all the interior design for my book myself. And something I love that you did and I did as well is like bringing music into it with like a Spotify playlist. Just like throw a QR code in there, people can scan it and listen to a Spotify playlist. It's great, and it just
Yeah,
adds to that immersion. It adds to the complexity of your storytelling experience, like what you're crafting for the readers.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like in the case of Sistah Samurai, if you don't listen to the playlist, you've actually missed part of the story. You
Right.
missed
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
story. Like I'm very intentional with every decision. The playlist is intentionally highlighting Black female artists, different generational Black female artists, and each chapter is named for each song in the playlist. And so it's just you can be so intentional
Hmm.
with every single thing and with every single thing in the production of the book that trad publishing in a way can't always do those little details.
Yeah, I mean they technically could, but budgeting departments would sway them in a different direction most of the
Yeah.
time. So what have been some of the other things? Like I love that you're so invested in like the actual production, the actual presentation of the book, but what have been some of the other things about self-publishing that for you have been the most rewarding, and on the flip side, like some of the things that have been the most challenging?
Sure. I definitely think that one of the most challenging things with self-publishing is that there is always something to do. Like from the writing to the marketing to the accounting to the admin, like it self-publishing is truly running your own small business.
Yeah.
And like so many small business, it's so easy to kind of allow it to take over everything. And you have to remind yourself to take a rest. But
Yeah.
I think the problem is that it's very easy to feel guilty resting. Like you feel like you're falling behind colleagues, like comparing yourself to everybody else. Um, but I've kind of taken the position that, you know what, I'm determined to be here for a long time. I've been writing since I was little. I'm gonna be writing till I die. So that has never been one of my concerns. That so I've, it's okay to take a break. Like it's okay to take a break. Like you can't do this like consistently and constantly. Like that is just a road to burnout, and
Yeah.
that's definitely something I want to avoid. So yeah, once this new book comes out, I'm definitely sleeping for a week.
Yeah, take because you really need it. You really need it, honestly. And I've been through that whole experience myself just the last year and a bit since I debuted. And
Yeah,
I went hard with marketing. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I want to ask your advice for self-published authors or people who are considering self-publishing, but I'll just give my 2 cents real quick on, you know, launching the book is not the hardest part. The hardest part is getting the book into readers' hands and the amount of work that goes into marketing and visibility and all these different things. And I went way too hard for like almost a year and definitely interrupted my flow when it comes to personal life, when it comes to creativity and writing and all this different kind of stuff. And it's way harder to balance than I'd previously imagined.
Yeah.
So like burnout is definitely a thing. And indie publishing very much rewards frequency.
Hmm.
And there are some authors out there who can do it. Like my
Yeah.
friend Andy Peliquin writes like a madman, and I'm like,
And these
every
tones.
like every one of his book is like 400,000 words, and I don't understand it. But he's at a point where he has that balance. He's able to navigate writing and marketing and all that different kind of stuff that is involved in his personal small business. But me, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
So for you, what's like a major piece of advice that you'd want to give out to anyone considering self-publishing?
Um, Treat it like a job, which means clock in and then clock out on the weekends. But also, especially with marketing, I've got myself on a schedule. Like, okay, this is when I'm gonna respond to comments, and this is when I'm gonna do this, so that I'm not constantly checking social media. I'm not constantly doing this. My brain can switch off to writing or switch off to a different task when I need it to.
Mm,
Because as an introvert, it takes a lot of energy. Like marketing and engaging with people takes a lot of energy out of me, and I want to conserve that energy as much as possible. So I'll do boop, keep going. Like it's like if when I treat it like a job in that way, it helps to, like get into the patterns that I need to like I need to get into. So for example, with my newest book, Return of the Sistah Samurai, I decided, okay, I'll do like a hardcore, like 3 month marketing
mhm.
campaign. And then I will rest and then I will write and then have things kind of engagement come in waves. So it's a little bit more easier for me to digest and easier for me to tackle. Um, but yeah, I definitely would get in the mindset. And that's not an easy thing to hear for everybody because for some people, this is a hobby.
Right.
But, if your goals are to make this into a career, treat it like a job.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's very easy for it to, like you said earlier, consume other parts of your life. It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the that weird plague in Princess Mononoke that's starting to consume the forest. It'll just it'll start taking you over, and it'll start seeping into every aspect of your life. And Um,
Yeah, exactly. And that's not to say that self-publishing doesn't have its rewarding moments. I know for me, recently, one of the most rewarding moments is I decided to do the pre-order campaign for Return of the Samurai myself. I
mhm,
had issues with pre-orders through Amazon and Ingram the last time the Samurai came out. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it by myself. I'm gonna do it for my website, entirely for me. But because of that, I was able to have the information to see the names that were coming in,
mhm,
and it's just so overwhelming to be able to identify some of those names. Like, oh, they've been with me since my debut. They've
yeah,
been with this person showed up to my first author signing and is still supporting me. Like, just to see the people that like is on this journey with me is so rewarding.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And also at the same time, just to be able to take back a little bit of control, right?
Yeah,
Where it's like you can personalize every single one of those copies that is pre-ordered.
and
You
I have.
can, yeah, and like and that is a really heartfelt experience to be able to say like this person's been with me since day one, and they pre-ordered this book, and now I get to say something really heartfelt to them
Yeah,
in return, like to give my gratitude back to them for all their support, and take a little bit away from Amazon or whichever publishing platform you're going with, right?
yeah,
um, and honestly, like I've heard that pre-orders with Amazon is a bit of a shit show, so uh, I don't know if it's like
yeah. Why
ever
give
gone
money to
smoothly for
Amazon
anyone.
when we don't have to?
Right. Oh man. Well, I want to talk a little bit more. I mean, I mentioned Princess Mononoke, but I want to dig deeper into anime because I know that's something that you and I share a lot of passion for. So, what are some of your all-time favorite anime series, movies, whatever, and why?
Okay, so like I can
You're just
honestly
like, get ready, get ready.
I can rant about anime all day. So like I definitely restrained myself. I'm gonna only talk about two. Talk about two. So one of my favorite all-time anime to this day is definitely Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
And specifically because it has directly impacted my writing and how I write. Cowboy Bebop exposed me to like storytelling that I've never seen before. It's very anchored in the present. You get like these vignettes of each of the characters. It's very thematic. It's very musical. Like it taught me how to stretch out beat and construct impactful imagery. Like to this day, I think of space and jazz terms.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like writing as constructing a piece of music,
Yes. Yeah.
or
And
but also like in terms of Cowboy Bebop, like the improvisational aspect of jazz.
yes. And like in many ways that's how is reflected in my own writing. Like the prose of Sister Samurai is very musical. It definitely has a rhythm to it.
Hmm.
Um And like going back to Cowboy Bebop, what also captured my imagination about it is just like how diverse it was. Like you had Faye, who was South American. There was Ed, who was this androgynous character. Spike was from Mars.
Hmm.
Um, Jet was voiced by a black voice actor, so he was just like light skinned, like my daddy. um, so like I saw myself in Cowboy Bebop, and it's also an anime that celebrates jazz, that celebrates this musical style that's just so essential to Black culture and kind of the foundations of a lot of musical genres. But also, like, ultimately, it's about these flawed characters just making it through life and just, like, kind of trying to survive and, like, surviving their past. So Cowboy Bebop in many ways was like coming home. Like I can't explain like, how much that show more than anything has stayed with me as a writer and an artist. So I don't know if
Hmm.
you can kind of see some of that in Sister Samurai, but
No, I definitely
man.
can, and like I'm a huge fan of Cowboy Bebop. I even have like um, some references to Cowboy Bebop and Mushroom Blues.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
there's I mean, it's like a very noir thing, but there's a scene set in a an underground jazz club, and the musicians playing on stage are called Faye and the Valentines.
Oh,
So
love it.
so it's very near and dear to my heart as well.
Yes, yeah. So that one was very important to me growing up. The second show is Dragon Ball Z, and a lot of people kind of
Nice.
discount it, but like it
I mean,
is
it's kind of like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon are kind of this weird trends
right.
and um like in this weird anime limbo where
Yeah,
I think like because they broached some pop culture sort of, you know, limitation that a lot of other animes get stuck in,
right,
they just
right.
went like way beyond it.
But what's brilliant about both of those properties is how it broke a lot of storytelling rules and redefined them. Like it really did. Like what other shows before DBZ had fights extending episodes
Yeah.
and like could keep people's attention on these extended fight episodes. Like you've had like the heel turn of Vegeta, like from a hero to a
Hmm.
villain. You had like a lot of these tropes really set in stone that you see in like progression fantasy and you see in a lot of
Hmm.
anime today. And let me talk to you about Bulma. So like what is absolutely like revelatory about DBZ, and I honestly don't know if Toriyama did this on purpose, but we're gonna put some respect on Bulma's name today.
Okay.
Um because in the original Dragon Balls, like that was Bulma's story. Like it was her goals and her motivations that moved the plot forward. They wouldn't have been able to beat Frieza without Bulma because they wouldn't have gotten to Namek in the first place. They wouldn't be able to beat Cell because Bulma built the time machine. Like, not only that, but at a certain point in the story, Bulma was the first single mother that I've ever seen represented on in an anime or any media
Hmm.
because she doesn't get with Vegeta later, but and it's like, what would the boys do without her? But like I guess like
She's
she
like the
is,
unsung hero of
yeah,
DBZ.
she's the unsung hero. She is like the OG STEM queen, and in my opinion, one of the best female characters in anime history. Um, but not only that, Bulma is an example of like a wider trend that you do see in Japanese storytelling, which embraces women in the center of a narrative in a way
Hmm.
that Western storytelling wasn't doing at all at the time.
Yep.
So when you think of like Sailor Moon and Rose of Versailles, or even in Studio Ghibli like Spirited Away and
Yep.
Princess Mononoke, like all of these are representative of how women is essential in the literary history in Japan. Like when like going all the way up to like the Tale of Genji, right, which was written by a woman in a style associated with women.
Hmm.
So like there's just being able to access like these different storytelling forms through anime has been essential to at least me as a writer.
Yeah, and I mean it's so obvious in your work, honestly. You know, like the thread of really strong female lead characters. Um, you know, I mean, I would like to talk more about Sister Samurai and kind of like the origins of it. And this sounds like a major sort of like foundational pillar for that book, but also your two previous books, Forging of Destiny, where it's
Yeah.
just being able to draw on these inspirations from cultures and storytelling traditions that are not our own in order to give prioritization to the things that are more important to you while also be like, I mean, Sister Samurai is like, I know you pulled heavily on like Samurai Champloo and Afro Samurai and like the Boondocks kind of vibes and stuff like that, but tell me a little bit more about um the ways in which you approach your lead characters, and then we can get a little bit more into Sister Samurai.
Okay. Yeah. So I think like so far, like my lead characters have always had distinctive personalities. Like they kind of came to me. And they have very different personalities. Like Sister Samurai, she didn't even know she wanted to show up for the story, but she was there.
Hmm.
She was there anyways. And my intention as a writer is to kind of just showcase the just the depth of them, like their flaws and their imperfections, but like their goals and their joys and their pains, like just to just to showcase all of the multifaceted of women, but also women at the center of these very big, like just fantastical story, fantastical stories where we're the heroes.
Hmm. And honestly, that's something that I mean, you mentioned sorry, N.K. Jemisin earlier on, and I can't remember the name of her first series. I think it's
Um,
Juneblood,
the 100,000 Kingdoms.
100,000 Kingdoms. Okay, so that, the, you know, just from like that point, going forward, you start to see. I don't necessarily think N.K. Jemisin was like the first, but obviously you have authors like Octavia Butler and
Yeah.
um, so many different authors from marginalized backgrounds who are given more prominence, given more attention, given more gratitude from the readerships who've been sidelined for so long, and now there's finally an opportunity for them to read books where they're able to associate with the characters more deeply, able to associate with the cultural references and all these different aspects that make it feel more personal and relatable to their lived experience. So how are you kind of approaching taking your characters and kind of infusing it with your personal experiences, but also the ways in which you are able to kind of give that to readers and share that with them and have that really beautiful kind of like unified experience of like creator and consumer, but there's this beautiful connection right in the middle, where they're able to speak to each other even though you might not actually speak to each other.
um, you know, I don't know if I think about it in those terms. Like when I approached Sister Samurai, like my inspiration was I wanted to see people like my mom and people like my aunt and people like my grandmother on the page of a fantasy book. And it wasn't something I had read at the time. You don't get a lot of older black MCs, like chopping down chopping down demons. But like, as a child, that's how I visualized it.
Mm-hmm.
Like a single mother taking care of business. And I guess just writing real characters, you readers find something that they can relate to. Um, and that's my goal. My goal is to write to our humanity and to
Mm.
show, the humanity in the characters and in the people around me that don't often get that representation and that isn't often shown in this genre. Um, and I want to tell you what the experience is like.
Yeah, and it's really amazing because I think fiction is probably like the best vehicle for empathy that human beings have ever created,
Yeah,
and it is really great for authors from different backgrounds to write, their experiences or write the things that they want to write, but also for readers of different backgrounds to be able to read stories from a huge diversity of authors and get more insight into what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes, right?
yes,
um
yes,
and so
yes.
for from your perspective, like, I guess, how do you view the SFF space right now,
Mm.
and the indie space, and how do you, I mean, what would you want to hear if you were starting out and um, kind of approaching this industry, being from a marginalized background, not just being, a woman, but also being African American and trying to fucking navigate like the craziness of, I mean, everyone knows what, most people know what's going on in the States right now. Um, the craziness of being othered in your own country, right? But then entering into an industry like writing, like publishing. What advice would you want to hear of getting into that space?
Um, don't be afraid to make people uncomfortable. Um, because I think sometimes as marginalized authors, we are so used to living in a society where we are trained to be small
Hmm.
and where to make the majority comfortable, to make to make the majority comfortable with our presence as much as possible. And like I say, fuck it. Like, don't water down, don't sacrifice your voice, don't make your story more palatable for someone else, if they're not the audience that you're writing for. Um, like, who cares if they don't relate to our characters? Who cares if they don't see value in our voices? Who cares if you get a bad review? Like, forge ahead anyways. Like, challenge genre norms, challenge storytelling narratives, challenge the default, challenge, the saying like why things are the way they're supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um, So like be brave and be confident, be true, be in community, like support each other. Just boldly claim your space. Because I think that's really what is going to lead to us or lend to us really transforming this genre and making sure that there's always space in this genre for us.
Yeah, and honestly, every story is going to find its audience. It's just not going to be. You're never going to be able to please everybody.
No?
And if you try, then I'm sorry, it's just not going to work out because everyone will like people can read through that crap. It's like be really true to yourself, and that genuine expression will come through to the readers as well. And
Yeah.
um, I think it's really cool that like indie it kind of opens the doors for so much like niche, which is why I really love your books. It's like who wants like I mean, I know this year like what was it, Assassin's Creed Shadows came out, and it has
That's
Yasuke.
my
uh
gift after this thing is published.
yeah, but it's amazing, like a lot of people don't really know that there was legitimately like a black samurai who basically ended up in Japan as a
Yeah.
former slave, and you know became a very prominent figure in Japanese history at that particular moment. But I think it's really cool that for anyone out there who's like, oh yeah, like I want a black samurai book with hip hop, like anyone who loves Samurai Champloo and wants more of that, they can find it because your particular mind was like, this niche story is what speaks to my heart right now.
Yeah.
And to be able to write that and then put that out there, and other people are like, what speaks to my heart right now as a reader? Yeah, I want a black samurai. Let's fucking do this. So why do you think like SFF is, but particularly the self-publishing space, is so good for niche stories? And how did you kind of approach your books when it came to finding that niche that was like the most truthful version that of the story that you could do?
Yeah. So why is indie such a good way of finding niche audiences?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's that saying where in indie, like you can find anything. Like, and even let's talk about like the fantasy romance genre. Like
Mm-hmm.
even it's grown so big that people could now like niche it down to specific tropes that they want to read. They're like, I want to read this and this and this and this and this, and they can go find
Yeah.
it. Like it makes indie publishing makes reading so accessible, and if there's something that you're looking for and that you want, you can find it. But like there are some times that like there are some books that you don't know that you wanted until you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh yes, that sounds so interesting, that sounds so great. So just the creativity and the control. I mean, I can't imagine going to trad publishing and being like, hey, I'm writing this book where the target audience is black girl nerds. And they're like,
Black
how
girls who
many?
love anime.
Yeah. And they're like, wait, how many, what are the numbers for that audience? Like, can you imagine? But as an indie author, if I can find that audience, if I can tap into that audience, um, because we do generally make more per sale than a trad author does. So we
Mm-hmm.
can find like that niche audience, and really build a following that can sustain us and even sustain a whole career. And that's one of the great amazing things about like indie publishing. It's the wild west of creativity and imagination. It's just always finding those things, like sometimes the things that get the visibility in this genre and in this space. Um, it's skewed a little bit. So sometimes you do have to go and search and find
Mm-hmm.
and go digging because a lot of the times it isn't easy to find these things. A lot of the times these things do exist, but like uh, it's, visibility is a struggle within the indie publishing industry, and kind of just finding those stories. It's not a question whether the story exists. It's a question of whether you can find it.
Yeah, and then that I think that's where the community really comes into play, where there are there are blogs, there are like YouTubers and people on Instagram who are much more tapped into
Yeah.
the indie space, and so you can sort of like navigate that a little bit, get their recs, and um, stumble across. I think a lot of it is just honestly stumbling across stuff, but but I think it's a beautiful thing that readers can find these niches and kind of awaken their passion for forms of storytelling that they didn't necessarily know that they wanted, right? And like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
definitely surprised. I was like, I don't know how like a noir mushroom book is gonna do. and and then like you say, it's like you find that audience and then you tap into that audience and you really cherish them, like
Yeah.
cherish what they're able to give you, how they support you, the way that they're able to sustain your career and all that. And I think that's why you came back to do a book two in this series, like with Return of the Sister Samurai. Is like, did you ever plan on doing that? I don't know, but then the reception may have shaped your opinion a little bit, or the demand for is there going to be more? Is there going to be more? May have influenced you to write more. How did that go?
So definitely not. I am too much a contrarian at heart, unfortunately. Um, but one day, the title of book four popped in my head, and it was such a good title. It's only a title that the series could pull off. I knew I had to write to it. In addition,
You knew
like
you had to get to book. You knew you had to get to book four at
yeah, I
least.
had to get to book four. And
Amazing.
then also, one of my favorite anime ending is Shiki no Uta of Samurai Champloo.
Mm-hmm.
And I I love to and I definitely wanted to visualize the series in that way where each book is very heavily inspired by a different season.
Mm.
So the Samurai was spring, this next one is summer, and so the next one is fall, will be the fall book. Um, and to be fair, a lot of readers, like a lot of readers are online like, "Oh yeah, it would be cool if we can get like a book about the brother monks and things like that." And again, I'm like, no, I'm gonna give you more ladies for the second one. Like,
But again, it's writing what you want, right?
yeah, yeah. Like you know, um, featured here in Right Hive, like at the end of this book, it does reveal that the next book is the Brother Monk's book. But before we get there, there was definitely another story that I needed to tell, and
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wanted to tell about the rebirth of the clan because in the first book, the clan's kind of decimated because of events, and I wanted to show the rebirth of that clan in the second book.
I love it. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
I can't wait to read book two. And honestly, like knowing that book four is going to be winter, I'm like, Tatiana's gonna drop some dark shit. It's gonna be a heartbreaker. I can
I'll tell you
imagine.
the title after this
Please
interview.
do. Sorry to anyone out there watching. You don't get to hear it. Oh, but I love it. And I love that there's because actually reading Sister Samurai reminded me a lot of Wu Tang Clan and the ways in which Wu Tang Clan as like a group has incorporated Japanese history and Japanese themes into their music.
Yeah.
And there's just something so magical about this combination of hip hop and Japan. Like it is so, I don't know. And like one of my favorite artists of all time is a DJ producer named Nujabes,
Yes.
RIP, who
Yeah.
did the soundtrack for Samurai Champloo.
Yeah.
And so there's this really, yeah, it's just this magical kind of confluence
Yeah.
of culture and
There's
everything
been a
like that.
long history of like cultural
Yeah,
exchange between the two.
it's so cool. So how did you kind of approach that when writing Sister Samurai and expanding upon that in book two? Just kind of that, yeah, that mix of cultures, that little melting pot.
Yeah. So like I do have to admit book two is somehow like blacker and more nerdier than the first book.
Yo,
Somehow.
that was a high bar. You passed it. Damn.
Yeah, and the beta readers agree with me, so
I
yeah,
love it.
watch out. Um, but man, it's just I like I do love this genre. Like growing up, there was like a big exchange, and for a long time, we didn't really see that again. It kind of died down after the 90s. And I was like, I want to bring it back. Like, I want to bring this fusion genre back. I don't know why no one else is writing this, but like let's go. And like I did want to create a world where like we could see ourselves, but I also wanted to create a world that was also respectful to the Japanese culture
Hmm.
as well. That kind of like blends the two very thoughtfully and very intentionally. Um, so yeah, you definitely see the world expands. There's definitely more groups in the second book. The main thematic in the second book is breaking down the patriarchy, and I say like I don't hold back any punches. So
I wouldn't want you to either.
yeah, yeah. So it's a fun story that definitely expands on the first one.
I love it. It's bigger and blacker and bolder.
Yes. Yes.
What's the tagline for the book? Do you have a tagline for it?
Um my tagline that I've been using on social media is it's about an intergenerational group of black women cutting down the patriarchy and looking good while doing it.
Nice. Well, that definitely plays into like the visual element that you incorporated into it as well. It's very like I don't know. It's kind of like got this kind of kawaii, uh, sort of like bubblegum aesthetic to it that I
Yes,
really
there
really love.
definitely is one character that's very kawaii inspired.
Love it. Oh, it's so amazing. All right. Well, there's another story of yours that I wanted to touch on. I teased it at the beginning, but it's the short story that you wrote called "Fuck Them Kids," which was originally published in Fiyah Literary Magazine, and then it was nominated for a Locus Award, which is like, goddamn, congratulations! But then it's being published again in the upcoming the Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy 2025, which is edited by Nnedi Okorafor. So, I mean, like, honestly, how did you react? Like, because I'm just putting myself in your shoes, being an indie author, getting your short story published in Fire Literary Magazine, then getting nominated for a Locus, then it being chosen for this big anthology, this massive chain reaction of amazing
Yeah,
news. How are you feeling about it? Like, how have you been reacting to all this?
like stunned, like just stunned, honestly. Um, because I've only started writing short stories in the past 4 years to kind of
Mm-hmm.
to challenge myself with something new. Like I'm very comfortable with long form format. Like that's my bread and butter. But as an author, I always want to challenge myself and do something different. And that story wasn't my first story that I submitted to Fire Literary Magazine. I've had another one that was rejected previously, and I've had other short stories that have been rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they pull the call, they put the call out, and they always do it in themes. And this one was spacefaring aunties. So I'm just like, oh man, that has my name all over it. Like it has my name all over it. And so like it definitely was originally inspired by my aunt, who is the craziest driver that I've ever experienced. like I the first time I cursed in front of my family was riding the passenger seat in her car
In her
as she
car.
like swerved in front of an
Where
18
where did
wheeler.
where did your auntie grow up though?
Oh, in Texas.
Okay, she grew up in Texas. I was gonna say like
No,
if she there are many
Dallas
places
freeways
she
are crazy.
okay. I've never driven in Texas, so I don't know. I'm imagining like where could she have come from to like because South American drivers and Caribbean drivers are bonkers. Like
Oh man, no, like she's terrifying. But there was one time I was in China. I was there for a wedding in China, and
yeah.
my shoes fell apart. Like because I was a bridesmaid, and my shoes fell apart like in the suitcase. And so like the groom's cousin, they were like, okay, we need to go get her some more shoes. And so I wrote front seat in China, in Xi'an, like in traffic. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the most terrifying experience ever.
like
But his grandmother was on the phone with him saying, you better bring her back safely. So
like
I
like
trusted him.
PTSD flashbacks to when you're driving with your aunt.
Oh man. Yeah. But like so she definitely inspired like the asteroid racer aspect of the story. Then also
Hmm.
touch on important themes in regards to just women being able to like live a full life even
Yeah.
without children. um and so I submitted it to the magazine, and honestly, I didn't think it would get chosen because it's it's very genre. Like a lot of the time, short stories and literary short stories are very literary,
Hmm.
and like this one was funny. Like it made you laugh. Like there was action in it. Like it was very genre. Um, 'Cause I wasn't really expecting anything, but then it got picked up by Fiyah Literary Magazine. I was like, oh yes, cool, yay! And honestly, I was not expecting like anything else. Like I really wasn't. Um, because like when I think back to Sister Samurai in many ways, I don't know if I consider it well received in regards to critically or like in competitions, but because it's a fusion genre, the target audience that like really understands both parts of the fusion is very
Yeah.
small. Like I like you're gonna have to have some quite like diverse judges in the competition to really understand where Sister Samurai is coming from. Like I wasn't ever expecting, like it's very, all my writing's very anti-mainstream, anti-white gaze, anti-hand holding. Like it is what it is. I wasn't expecting anything.
Hmm.
Um so like when that short story like was starting to be like critically reviewed well, like being shouted out, um and then it got the locus, and then it was selected by American Science Fiction and Fantasy, and I was like, what is happening? All of this over a short story? Like what's going on? Like what's going on? Like I had no expectations, no nothing, like at all. Um but like it does make me wonder, like if, like taking into account that it was a Black literary magazine that gave me this opportunity,
Hmm.
and it was a Black editor, Nydia Okorafor, that saw value in my voice and saw value in what I had to say. And I do think it shows how important it is to have diversity in all levels of publishing,
Yeah.
because there are so many indie authors telling important stories, but they aren't really given the chance to get those stories or have those stories amplified because of gatekeepers. Like they're not given the visibility, they're not given the acknowledgement or the recognition,
Yeah.
because their target audiences aren't in these critical spaces, and it really underscores like how important and the value of building spaces for ourselves and like organizations and programs like Right Hive, right? Without Right Hive, Sister Samurai wouldn't be an award-winning novel. you know
Thank you.
um and this is a novel that has made Black women feel seen and feel celebrated and feel welcomed in a genre that has historically not welcomed us in both anime and fantasy.
Yeah.
But like it's like, just because something doesn't have value to you doesn't mean it doesn't have value at all.
Exactly.
And I think that's something we definitely need to be conscious of when we approach marginalized stories and marginalized voices.
That's a beautiful message. And honestly, like you're totally right. There is like a definite threshold when it comes to, yeah, there's whether we like to admit it or not, there is this divide between different parts of the publishing industry, and a lot of indie fantasy doesn't get um, doesn't get visibility in traditional spaces, and sometimes it even gets like frowned upon, looked down upon. And I've talked to authors like who've made that transition, like Travis Baldry with Legends and
Yeah.
Lattes, or Aparna Verma with
Phoenix King.
Phoenix King, Gaurav Mohanty with Sons of Darkness, like these
Yeah.
authors who started out in indie and then made that move, but they still retain a lot of that indie spirit, which is really beautiful. And I think a big part of the indie spirit is community, and is um, creating those spaces and giving back to the community.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really amazing when Right Hive and other groups are able to do things like virtual cons and whatnot. That's another benefit of like the pandemic, is like virtual conventions.
Yes.
I love that so much.
Yeah, and it
Um,
makes it makes writing craft more accessible,
yeah.
because especially when you start talking about like marginalized voices and indie publishing, there are a lot of upfront
Mhm.
cost. And sometimes the biggest hurdle and the biggest hill can be resources and
Yeah.
access. And being able to have a virtual convention is, is such a game changer,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Or my friend Zach Argyle and his wife, Bookborn. So he's a fantasy author and she's a
yeah,
booktuber, and they run every year the Indie Fantasy Fund, the IFF, and that's another, like, there's so many different resources out there for people to kind of supersede the potential barriers to entry, and definitely like finances and resources is a big one. So it's amazing that Zach and his wife are doing that, but at the same time, another one of those resources is just information.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why I love doing my podcast. I love being able to do these like writing master classes and have all these authors share their experiences from different walks of life and different publishing paths, and be able to give that to people for free, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Just because, you know, so many people out there are worthy of having their stories told and worthy of having their stories published.
yeah.
um
And sometimes it's like even the small details that you don't really think about. I remember when I first started, I did a lot of research, but how many authors were sharing their numbers that were marginalized authors in the epic fantasy space, sharing their numbers and sharing what that looks like?
yeah.
Because I can't compare myself to, for example, a romantasy author. Like
Hmm.
those are two different genres.
Yep.
Like what you expect, the expectations for those genres are very different. Like I can't compare myself. So you want to find someone that's comparable so you can say, okay, this is kind of what my journey is going to look like.
Hmm.
But a lot of the times that information wasn't there, and it's like, okay, look, like I'm forging, forging this path.
And you're just kind of like, you're like walking this path and you're like picking up little berries of information along the way and
Yeah,
hoping that it's not poisonous. Just like it's gonna be a nutritional berry as opposed to something that's gonna be
right. That gives
bad
me
for you.
life,
Yeah, it gives me
life
life
points.
as opposed to like, way too much negativity out there.
Yeah,
But yeah, this is why I'm really grateful to Red Hive for doing what they do, for the Indie Ink Awards, for their annual conference is amazing. And just to wind down, since the tagline for Right Hive is writing the future we need, I kind of wanted to get your take on what that looks like to you in particular as the
yeah.
guest of honor for this year.
So this is a bit of a roundabout answer. Um, yeah, but stay with me, guys. um, so Afrofuturism is a very specific genre in the Black speculative space, and the power behind this genre is kind of just this hopeful and fierce belief that Black people will not only exist in the future, but that we will exist free and thriving and with agency. And, because sometimes imagining that has the power to make it true. And I feel like Right Hive tagline, "Writing the Future We Need," expands that concept and expands that idea. So, it includes neurodivergent thriving in the future, LGBTQ plus thriving in the future, persons with disabilities thriving in the future, like all the persons of the global majority. Like it is just this hopeful and fierce belief that if we can imagine the society that we want to have in our stories today, that we can make the future come true.
Love that. That's really amazing. I hope everyone at Right Hive is satisfied by that fantastic answer. Everyone out there watching too, because yeah, like everyone deserves, like I said, to have their story told, but readers deserve to have stories that reflect them as well. And there's just so much complexity to the human experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so to be able to add more complexity to the books that are available to people, I think is an amazing opportunity, and self-publishing definitely helps push that forward and push those boundaries and give more people what they need, whether it's the stories that they write or the stories that they read.
Yeah.
All right, well, guest of honor, I would like to ask a final piece of advice from you. What would you like to share with anyone out there watching? Just I don't know, anything that comes to mind, anything that feels really important to you, whether it's about writing or reading or creativity, whatever it may be.
Sure. Um, I definitely want you to take in, like your purpose for writing, like why you're writing. Um, because I know for me, like I write a lot of character driven stories. Um, and the reason why I write these character driven stories is to show the humanity of the people around me. Um, because, the world that a lot of authors display as grim dark, some authors are living that. Like, the growing up as a black woman in America, you live in a world where they are oppressing you and vilifying you all at the same time.
Hmm.
And it is so important to have these stories that show our humanity, that um, like knowing that what's reflected in the media is not true. Like, was how, like, your brothers and your sisters and how you, like, what they say about you in the media is not true. And writing these stories is in many ways a way of fighting back, in many ways showing our humanity, because honestly, this country could use like a lesson in humanity. And you know writing our stories, we got to write our stories and push back against these narratives. Like, it's so important. And don't be afraid. And it is a very scary time. Like, like they're out here banning, like banning book bans,
Yeah.
and just limits on free speech and limits on what we can say and how we can be and like who can be. um and but stories is so important. As we had said before, like stories is one of the most accessible ways in building empathy. It's so important. Like, pick up a diverse book, right? Like, walk in someone else's shoes, but
Hmm.
also acknowledge that you your entitlement, that it's okay for those shoes to feel uncomfortable, because
Yeah.
they're not your shoes, they don't fit you. But walking in those shoes is still a very valuable experience, and that goes for everything. That goes for all of us. I don't think I'd be the writer I am today without just enjoying so many different storytelling narratives. Like, we talked about anime, but I also watch K dramas. I also love Chinese wuxia novels. I also love like just indigenous circular storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different narratives out there that kind of really exposes how society, like the tools that society uses within storytelling, and how that reflects a society and culture. And just being aware of those and being aware of what they are so that we can use it to our advantage.
Yeah. And one of my mottos for life has always been understanding is on the other side of discomfort. So,
Yes. Yeah. That's a
just
good one.
take that little extra step, and you never know what you may find. You never know where you may end up. And having that understanding is better than being ignorant to it, to blind to
Yeah.
it, you know? And speaking of experimenting with, all the things you're enjoying and consuming, if just to close out, you want to share some recommendations for any books or movies, TV shows, video games, anime, what have you, that you want to share with everyone out there.
So I've definitely like haven't been consuming as much media as I want to, because I've been publishing, trying to get this book out. But definitely some books that I suggest for you to check out. Like, I don't know if you've read Tamara Jaray's The Fall That Saved Us. Very beautiful, luscious, literary fantasy romance. I love Damon Schillingford's I Am King. Like, if you are a D&D fan, please pick that book up. It is so good. I'm also a big fan of Zamil Akhtar. Like, I love his Gunmetal God series.
Zamil's
It's
great.
just, uh,
I adore him.
he's so talented, and love that series. Um, I was also a contributing editor for Magic and the Melanin, a Black Fantasy Anthology, and this is the anthology, and it's just like a bunch of short stories from different Black Fantasy authors. So if you're out there like, oh, I don't know any Black Fantasy authors, here you go. Here's a
There's
whole
an anthology
anthology
of them.
anthology of them, and it does showcase like different subgenres within the fantasy genre. So if you don't like fantasy romance, go to the next book. If you don't like epic fantasy, go to the next story.
Hmm.
Um, in regards to things that I suggest watching, Watch Andor. Andor is really good, especially this recent season.
It's a bit like I mean, speaking about like revolution and stuff like that, and current events in the United States, Andor is very timely.
Very timely.
But very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Tatiana, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm super proud of everything that you've been able to accomplish, and super grateful
Oh,
to Right Hive for picking you as their guest of honor this year. Is very well deserved.
thank you. I'm grateful too, because the invitation came before like the short story stuff, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Just another amazing thing to add on to this year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you go support Tatiana. Go check out Sistah Samurai. Book 2, Return of the Sistah Samurai, is out by the time this is published. Um, so go check out those books. Go check out Bones to the Wind, Drag in Your Bones, books 1 and 2 in the Forging of Age series. Go check out Magic in the Melanin, which you just mentioned, and then go, whenever, I can't remember when it releases. I think sometime later this year, but towards the end of the year, Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy
Yes, in
2025. Go check that out.
October.
Perfect. So go check that out, and show some love to Tatiana and her work. Tatiana, if you just want to give a quick rundown of where people can find you online, and then
Yeah, sure. My website is tatianaobey.com, and I am available across all social medias at Obey the Author.
and show your books one more time, just so people can see.
Yes. So I have my completed duology, A Forging of A series. Get into it because this is the next book that I plan on writing.
Ooh,
Will
nice.
be in that world, and then my Return of the Sister Samurai series.
Amazing. Love those covers. And shout out to Felix Ortiz, who is the cover artist who did those two, but also
Yeah,
my novel Mushroom Blues. An amazing guy and a very, very talented artist.
yeah, he is.
So yeah, go follow Tatiana. Go check out her books. If you want to follow me, you can check out Mushroom Blues wherever you find books. There's also audiobook available, and you can find me online at Adrian M. Gibson, or adrianmgibson.com. And then you can check out my podcast, SFF Addicts, which is pretty much every platform, but you can specifically find video on Spotify and YouTube if you want to check that out. And Tatiana was on an episode earlier this year on choosing your publication path with Christopher Rocchio, author of the Sun Eater series. So if you want a little bit more info on, figuring out how to navigate that path between traditional publishing, hybrid, self-publishing, that's a really fun masterclass to check out. And then Tatiana's again this month on an indie panel as part of our Indie Appreciation Month on building your community, which is something that we've talked a lot about today. So it's very fitting.
Yeah.
So lots of good stuff to check out. And thank you all so much for tuning into this. Thank you to Right Hive for hosting this conference, but also to the team for choosing Tatiana as guest of honor. Again, very well deserved. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the conference.